Well, another crystal clear morning here in the southern part of our state. A little chillier this morning, but not too bad. Giant region of high pressure sitting just to our north over near the arrowhead of Minnesota. This map today unfortunately has no isobars on it, but we can still see some of the main weather features, particularly this cold frontal boundary that stretches all the way from the Canadian Maritime provinces back across to just about southwestern New Mexico. And along the way, there's light rain across it in the Gulf of Maine, all the way into the middle Atlantic states, heavier convective rain through Kansas and parts of Kentucky, Illinois, and Indiana, and then something's brewing here in the Intermountain West near the Four Corners region. It doesn't look like much on this surface map because right now the storm doesn't have too much shape. We'll see on the satellite in just a minute that the disturbance of interest is still sort of centered off the coast of California, and we saw that one on Wednesday rotating slowly off the coast at about the latitude of San Francisco. It's moved a little bit further south and only slightly eastward from where it was Wednesday, but it will pick up steam in its eastward movement over the weekend, and it portends to be a really historic weekend in the plains of Colorado and southeastern Wyoming. So we have to watch for that. It's going to be potentially quite an amazing snowstorm. So that's all coming from what looks like fairly humble ingredients to begin with, and we're going to stay sunny for most of the day again today. As far as I can see outside my window, all of the snow, including giant snowbanks that have been piled up easily just less than 3 weeks ago to their maximum extent of the whole winter, are now completely disappeared. It's unbelievable. The most remarkable, uninterrupted stretch of snowmelt that I have ever seen, and leaving almost no puddles. Just an amazing period. The temperatures this morning are as I said, a little bit chillier than they were the last couple of mornings for us, not so much for the eastern United States. We'll see here first, 30 degrees in Madison at 7 a.m. local time, 33 in Green Bay, a little colder to the north, and then 5 degrees at International Falls. So you go all the way up to the border of Canada in northern Minnesota, you get down to the cold temperatures again. But boy, 56 in Boston at 8 a.m. local time, 54 in Portland. This is unbelievably warm for early March. As I said on Wednesday in the Weather and History, this week from the 10th to the 17th of March has historically been a week where quite extensive heavy snows can occur all over the country. This weekend it looks like it'll happen in Colorado. But in the past it's happened in New England and the New York State and Middle Atlantic coast region quite frequently. So to be 56 in Boston, 57 in New York, 58 in Washington, D.C. on the 12th of March is quite remarkable. So widespread temperatures in the 60s and 50s and 60s, even a few 70s. Look at Houston is 70 and Corpus Christi is 70, 71 in Miami. Pretty warm day. And you'll see, as we've been beginning to show this week, in the dew point temperatures, some of those really warm spots like Houston and Corpus Christi have dew points nearly as high as the temperature. So a 70-degree temperature at Houston, 67 dew point, that means a very high relative humidity, a very muggy, summery feeling morning down in Houston, and the same in Corpus Christi. Even further inland, Dallas is 63 dew point, same at Shreveport, 66 near San Antonio. So those are really moist air masses that are coming in off the western Gulf of Mexico. That air is going to get itself involved in the storm that takes shape over the southwestern United States. And so it's going to be this influx of moisture from the south and east and the circulation dragging it poleward as the storm emerges across the Rocky Mountains into the plains that will spell heavy snow threat for eastern Colorado and southeastern Wyoming. So, these places like Denver and Boulder, you're far away from the Gulf of Mexico. But meteorologically speaking, you're not that far away. You're about half a day away when that air gets caught into a big circulation at middle and upper tropospheric levels, and it just drags all that water vapor and high dew point air straight northward towards places where it will snow heavily over the weekend. And then up over our region, chillier temperatures always means chillier dew points or lower dew points. And so the temperature can never be smaller than the dew point temperature. It's always the other way around. So 30-degree temperature at Madison, 26 dew point. Relative humidity is fairly high, but the actual water vapor content is quite low with a 26-degree dew point. Look at Boston, 56 temperature, 24 dew point. That's a really warm morning with almost no water vapor in the air. So that's a rare occasion, especially rare at this time of year. Pretty interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at our satellite movie across the the continental United States and adjacent waters. So there's a couple of features of interest on this map. One is this cloud street that goes all the way from the eastern Pacific, almost the tropical part of the eastern Pacific, straight across northwestern Mexico, across New Mexico, Texas, and then into the Central Plains of, Kansas, Missouri, and parts of the Ohio River Valley. So that seems like it's emanating from the tropics. But then if you look further downstream, it seems like partly it's connected to this circulation up here over Quebec, where we have a decent extratropical cyclone, counterclockwise swirling air mass up in this region. And the trailing cold front gets connected to this stream of water vapor and cloudiness coming from the subtropics. So this is all a deeply connected system. And so where it's raining this morning, you'll see in the radar, over Kansas and Missouri and parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, that's connected not only to the extratropical storm that's well to its northeast in Quebec, Canada, but also to the subtropical moisture plume that's coming across from the eastern Pacific and fueling some of that precipitation. And then the other big feature of interest is, in fact, the swirling collection of clouds off the southern coast of California, sort of centered around the Bight of California, San Diego, Los Angeles area. And that is going to be the feature that develops into the storm that poses a threat for Colorado and Wyoming with heavy snows, record heavy snows, potentially tonight into the day tomorrow and Sunday. So it'd be a great place if you like snow to be out there. I wish I were there myself. Okay, so those are the two features of interest on this satellite movie. Let's see what it looks like across the country in the radar depiction, and that's right here. And you'll see across Kansas especially an eruption of red speckled reflectivity. And that means that these are becoming pretty intense, but very local little thunderstorms. Maybe there's hail falling out of them and maybe locally heavy rain. Probably not a tornado threat of any kind there today, but maybe later in the weekend. And so this is getting pretty intensely convective, I should say densely convective, lots of little convective cells, maybe not intensely so, like the kind that'll destroy farmhouses, but pretty interesting weather across the state of Kansas. And then on a line, stringing along the cold front, which is off the coast of New England, through the middle Atlantic states, and then into the Ohio River Valley, you see continuous precipitation. Again, that's even speckled with a little bit of red and orange reflectivity, indicating maybe some hail or some little bit of thunder and lightning embedded within otherwise, stratiform, non-thunder and lightning precipitation. And then you can see some precipitation elements over the state of Arizona and getting towards southwestern Utah and southern Nevada. That's in the center of the upper level circulation associated with what we saw kind of centered near the Bight of California. And this is the disturbance of concern for Colorado and Wyoming and some other locations in the high plains. So that will bear watching over the next couple of days. And here's the West Coast satellite movie, which gives us a better view, perhaps, of that feature off the California coast. But one can also see that the clouds over Arizona, Nevada, and Utah really are focused right around, the Hoover Dam region of the state, down in that location. And so you can see that's the big circulation, and as I'm telling you, it's a forecast that will become the feature of interest. Across the Pacific, though, there's really not any particular cyclones, that is, regions of counterclockwise spinning clouds, but there's a whole bunch of, there's a small one here in the Gulf of Alaska. There's a lot of cold air coming off of the continent in the state of Alaska, and you can see the front edge of that is really nicely defined here, and then these little lines almost look like smoke lines. Those are just low-level stratus clouds, almost like steam devils, steam fog, coming off of the northern part of the so-called Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. So pretty interesting going on there, but really just cold air coming off of the state, which is the continent. And then a sort of mixed bag of north-south oriented cloud plumes across the eastern and central part of the Pacific Basin this morning. And since it's Friday, I like to look at a forecast for the temperatures, at least, across the continental United States and adjacent waters. And we use last night's forecast run from the National Meteorological Center's Global Forecast System model. And this was initialized at midnight, or at, I guess, 11 p.m. last night. And now we're looking at a forecast that's valid this morning at 7 a.m. And so here's Madison, as you can see. There's the state of Wisconsin. And so we are starting out in the light blue, which means the temperature is about -2 degrees at 850 millibars. Notice across the desert southwest and the Four Corners region, there's just a broad L. There's an L in Arizona. The white lines are the equivalent of isobars at this level, about a mile above the ground. And this is a broad circulation structure that is just beginning to take shape across this part of the world. There's a very strong temperature contrast region indicated by the strong color coding from light blue where it's cold to oranges and yellows where it's quite a bit warmer. And so you can see that in that temperature contrast region is a continuation of the one that emanates from the storm up in Quebec, drapes across New England into the Ohio River Valley, and then comes back down all the way into the eastern Pacific. And it's going to be a focus for development over northern Arizona and northern New Mexico during the day today. So 12 hours from now, what happens? So this will be tonight at about 6 p.m. We don't get any colder. The shot of cold air that was poised just to our north seems to be going off to our east into New York State, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario region. And you can see that a considerable amount of warm temperatures appearing here in western Texas. That's because it's middle of the day. And here's the plains of Colorado. Still not much of a circulation involved yet with that storm. And then by Saturday morning, it cools down because it's morning across the high mountain regions of western Texas and northern Mexico. But nonetheless, circulation trying to get itself organized in Colorado. By midday tomorrow, or by afternoon tomorrow, that's when it really starts to look a little bit more menacing for Colorado and Wyoming. Suddenly, a much more impressive collection of white lines, which are, again, equivalently isobars at this level. And so the storm is taking shape in central eastern Colorado, and strong flow up the topography. The elevation of the land in central Kansas, where the cursor is much lower than it is in the east of the western plains of Colorado, just before you get to the Rockies. So this flow that's going up the slope is rising to higher and higher elevation, even though it's staying close to the ground, because the ground's going to higher elevation, and that means it's expanding and cooling, and clouds are being produced, and there's going to be a lot of snow that falls out of those clouds. So this will be what's known as an upslope snowstorm, because the flow is going up the slope of the topography, and that's how it is cooling and how its relative humidity is going up. So that's tomorrow night, Saturday night. We are quite a bit warmer tomorrow than we are today, as you can see in the temperatures. There's the storm on Sunday morning, really nicely organized in southeastern Colorado. It's going to continue to snow heavily in the eastern plains of Colorado. We get a little bit cooler by Sunday morning than we were during the day on Saturday, but that's to be expected. There's a little bit of a day-to-day temperature variation. And then a little bit more cooler, and this storm continues to rage Sunday night right over the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. And for us, a little bit more cool air filtering in from the north and northeast. And then the storm over the panhandle starts to move away slowly by Monday morning towards us. And we end up seeing it go by on Tuesday in a much weakened form, although it is going to be cooler around here on Tuesday by the time it comes by. So it's not impossible that we'll see a little bit of snow shower activity on the 16th of March. So that's coming up for us. The really cold air is to our north, as you can see. It's not right over us. And then the threat is over in Colorado until Wednesday. A new storm develops. This is not the same one. This is a new development that comes in exactly the same place as the old one, although by now it's probably warm enough in the plains of Colorado that whatever does potentially fall out of this could be liquid precipitation Tuesday night into Wednesday. And we are still just a little chillier than we are this morning. And there's storm number 2 chugging across the plains. It comes across southwestern Missouri on Wednesday night, and then across the southern part of Indiana, northern part of Kentucky by Thursday morning, by which time maybe there'll be a stray flurry of snow. It's definitely going to be colder here by the end of next week than it is now. And so we won't be feeling this spring-like feel we had this week in the coming week, I don't think. We'll be a lot chillier, and there goes the storm on Thursday night. And by Friday morning, it scoots off the coast of the middle Atlantic states, leaving us, again, colder than now, but not desperately so. So by the time we take our exam, it'll be a little bit chillier of a morning on next Friday than it is today, but not in an entirely different category.